And we're live.
Oh, I like that. It says in the middle. It says you're alive.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
alive.
You're alive.
To update for the viewers from last week, my finger has healed.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
It doesn't look good though.
What are you talking about? It's fine.
It's
a little
It
calloused.
looked like it would have healed
It looks
the way that it would have healed with stitches.
Yeah, it kind of looks like. You know what? Oh, we still love you, buddy. It's fine.
I handled the whole thing.
I don't want you to second guess yourself or anything. You're looking great. It looks.
Handled.
I handled it. I think it has a weird smell though.
Yeah, it doesn't look. It does look a little infected.
Yeah, it's fine. What's this?
Probably. Maybe.
I'll take it and have a doctor look at it, and I'll be like, "What's up with this?"
They like push it a little bit, and like a whole ghost comes out of it.
A whole ghost.
Ooh, and I'm like, "Oh, what's he doing in there?"
It gets haunted. Fingers
What are
on.
you doing? What are you doing in there, ghost? You little spooky in my finger.
You're a little spooky.
Are you a little spooky in my finger? All right.
It's getting me good.
Want to do it one more time?
Yeah, one more.
A little spooky in my finger.
I wish somebody
It
was
gets more effeminate every
I
time.
know. I wish someone was watching this. It'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, there are.
We always end up getting views on YouTube just somebody watch it live, which is weird because that's the Patreon perk, is you get to watch it live. I
That's
guess
what I'm
that's
saying.
not much of a perk for
No.
people.
Well, let's not talk about it. It's a
We're not
perk.
talking about it.
It's a perk.
Well, maybe it's a perk.
Patreon.com/Cinematary, everyone. Don't you wanna stay spooky in my finger live with us on chat?
It would be so great to chat live with the weirdos.
The weirdos who want to watch
Who
us.
want to watch that.
They would probably be very interesting people if they're weird enough to want to watch us live. Are you one of these weirdos?
Are you
Go to
spooky too?
patreon.com/cinematary right now.
Wow.
All right. You guys just go and then for the order you figure it out.
Okay.
You're in the same room.
No, I'm just kidding.
Who's going first? You or me?
You can go first.
Okay. Ready when you are, Zach.
Oh God, every time I'm on the podcast, I have to go. What episode is this? 362.
Everybody asks every week. It's fine.
I mean,
I've never been on an episode where nobody asked.
yeah, that's true.
No.
Cinematary fun fact.
No one remembers what episode we're doing.
Nobody ever remembers what episode. Except
I have to go to cinematary.com.
At least Zach knows.
kind of. I forget a lot.
Oh.
All right.
And we have a handy website.
All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Oh, hold on. God damn it, dude.
Are we starting over?
Yeah.
Is it Audacity? Is it giving you a hard time like it does me?
No, it's just stupid. There we go. It's all fixed. All right. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 362 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Andrew Swafford.
Jessy Alva.
In today's episodes, we'll be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we will be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1945's Brief Encounter. Real quickly, we head over to cinematary.com. We got reviews up of All Light Everywhere, Pig, and Space Jam, A New Legacy, which we might touch on a little bit in this part. I don't know. We'll see what time has.
See what happens.
Yeah, we'll see if I'm feeling it. I don't know.
He's in a Space Jam mood.
And, since it's a basketball movie, I left it all on the court in my review on cinematary.com. So it's there if you'd like to check it out. All right, Jessy, I'm going to leave it to you to make the joke that you'd like to make.
Yes,
and let's go ahead and jump into our first movie.
we are going to go ahead and jump into a new series that we are calling Young Critics Watch Old, where we watch the movie Old.
Man, if you only knew how long this joke has been, being cultivated over here. It's just been simmering.
We've been waiting for this moment.
Weeks.
for a
Came
long-
up with it like weeks ago, and she was like, "When Old comes out, it'll be Young Critics Watch Old." And
I
guess
don't
what?
think
It was
with
you,
that.
and it was
Yeah.
it was like, "Oh, that's clever," and now here we are.
We probably
And
said it on
Zach is
air
thoroughly
too.
tired of it. I texted it to Zach the first time she said it, and the first time Zach heard it, he didn't think it was funny. He sent me the emoji with like the two like just closed eyes and the straight face. And here we are at like iteration
See?
12 of this joke.
I mean, is this thing on? Hello.
That probably sounded horrible. Mike, thanks for actually.
We need like the Joker. We need the Joker meme, just like, you know.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Anyway, are we going to talk about the movie, or are we just going to talk about the joke?
First, we're gonna review the joke. Zach
Okay.
gives the joke 2 thumbs
The
down.
thing is, I think
Two
that I'm
thumbs down.
funny, and I think I like to think of myself as funny, but I don't know if you guys see me that way.
I think you do funny stuff. I don't think you have bits.
Wow,
Wow.
that hurt.
But you're a funny person just with what you do. Like you're
Stay in your lane, Zach says.
yeah, like but like, are you gonna come up with a bit? Are you like are you gonna have like a strong 5? No.
No. Anyway, we watched Old. It is about a movie.
It is about a movie. It is
a
the new
movie.
M. Night Shyamalan.
It is a new
film.
M. Night Shyamalan movie, and if you don't know a thing about it, let me just tell you, it's a movie where people go to a beach that makes them old. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yeah, this has been a real like deep well of memes this past couple of
Bad
weeks.
memes.
So that me, Jesse, Jessica, and Cam have a group chat on Twitter where all we do is send each other old memes.
Old, bad old
I
jokes.
think I started it because I sent them the meme of it was a Variety article. The title or headline was M. Night Shyamalan's daughter follows in filmmaking footsteps as old second unit director, and the quote tweet was, "The spooky thing is she was only 3 when production started." And there's many more I can continue reading, but anyway,
I like the joke that
day.
was. I enjoyed the joke that was, anybody who goes to a beach, it ages you because that's how time works.
Yeah, I think Willow McClay said something along those lines. She said, "Every time you go to the beach, you get a little older if you think about it."
Exactly. Yeah.
With a smile.
Makes you think.
Anyways, to talk
you
about the
know.
actual movie, this also stars one of your
Oh my
crushes.
God, yes.
Vicky Creeps.
Vicky
No.
Creeps.
Gael Garcia Bernal. He's like my number one guy crush. I'm trying to get Cinematary to do a series on him, but I don't know if it's gonna work.
Just throwing it out into the universe right now.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you
If you're
want to hear a
listening,
series
please
about
vote
Gael
on Twitter.
Garcia
Tell
Bernal,
us in the comments below.
yeah, send your fan mail.
Yes, please. I want to chat with someone. So, oh gosh, how do you really start to talk about this movie? Why don't you kick us off?
It's about a family.
I
Gael
respect
Garcia Bernal and Vicky Creeps from Phantom Thread.
Mhm.
They are on a vacation with their kids. They have 2 kids. One is 6, 7?
6 and 11, I think.
Yeah, 6, and then the other one's 11. Yeah. It's like an all-inclusive resort. Vicky Creeps' character heard about it online somewhere.
Right.
They get there. They meet like the guy who runs the resort, and he tells them about a secret excursion they can go on. He doesn't recommend to just everybody, but he feels like they're the right family for this excursion.
It's so silly too, because the kids are like, we want to go Paris to do this, to do that, and he's like, I have the perfect thing for you. You and your family should sit alone on a beach all by yourselves.
Right.
That'll be so much fun. And
so,
family's like, yeah, sounds great.
And so a van pulls up to take them to the secret beach. It is driven by one M. Night Shyamalan, who has a pretty interesting role in this movie.
Yeah.
I think he has a cameo in all of his movies, but he has a pretty big role here, I would say. And when they get there, it turns out there are plenty of other families who have also been like asked to go to this beach.
Right.
And when they get there, there's some general like people drama that just kind of erupts between like personalities clashing and stuff like that. But then people start getting old. Specifically, I think the
The
kids
kids are
start
the
getting
most
old
noticeable
first.
because they have so much like big developmental leaps that they're
Yeah.
doing. So.
And we have like all these people. There's like probably a dozen people in the cast. I'll look up who some of the actors are because there's some pretty notable people. But you kind of they don't all age at the same rate. It doesn't seem like there's a little bit of like logical inconsistency with how all this stuff plays out. And the movie kind of like hops around lots of different tones. There are parts of it that are really funny. There are parts of it that are really scary. There are parts of it that are really touching. There are parts of it that are really gross. And I think like my general take is I don't know if they all work together particularly well, but I think that all of them are kind of enjoyable on their own terms. Like when Shyamalan wants to be funny, he really succeeds at being funny.
Yeah,
when he
like
wants
there's
to
a
be
scene.
scary, he really succeeds at being
There's
scary.
a scene where Alex Wolff is the son of the family.
Well, once the son has become a teenager, he's
the
Alex
son,
Wolff.
The son has aged into a teenager.
Yeah.
He's actually accidentally, I don't know, this is a spoiler, I guess. He's accidentally impregnated somebody, and she, in the span of like 15 minutes, goes from like, I'm pregnant to I'm about to have this baby right now to here's a baby. And Alex Wolff is playing this like confused, angry teenager because like,
As he does.
Hey, I was 6 this morning and now I'm a teenager whose girlfriend just got pregnant in the span of 15 minutes. This is pretty fucky. But he plays this just like over dramatic, like I would die for her, I would marry her. Like,
I'm gonna get married to her. We're never gonna fight.
And it's like so goofy, but it's so perfect. Like I don't know why. I don't know why. Like because it is over dramatic and it's so overblown, but it's like so perfect too. Like he perfectly captured the like height of teenage angst.
I guess like one of the more charitable explanations of like the conflicting tones in this movie is that it's trying to capture like the breadth of human experience and like the different experiences people go through at different stages in their lives.
And in some moments, like it doesn't quite work, but in other moments, it's actually breathtaking.
And like
there's some really beautiful, touching moments of it. The way you see their brains, like or not, you don't see their brains, but
when you see
you really feel their brains developing. And it's captured so subtly in some scenes, like with their facial expressions and the things that they say. Like I said, there's some scenes that just doesn't work, but there are some scenes that it's just breathtakingly touching.
There's also some like sensorial stuff that they do. Like Gal Garcia Bernal's character goes blind over the course of his, accelerated life.
Right.
And the moment where it kind of clicks into like, oh, I just can't see anymore. You get all these POV shots from the character that are blurry. And the film doesn't really explain that's what's happening at first, but Shyamalan, it respects the audience enough to get what's going on. Same thing happened with Vicky Creeps. She starts to, I think she loses hearing in one ear, and there's like a really interesting scene where the camera sort of circles around her, and the stereo sound theater kind of shifts to reflect the direction she's facing and which direction she can't hear from, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of cool technical trickery in this movie.
Technical trickery for sure, but just so much like just really gorgeous displays of emotion.
Yeah,
it's like hard to really talk about, but I don't know.
The scene where Gal Garcia Bernal and Vicky Creeps are like really elderly and kind of like sharing one last tender moment together is really sweet.
It's
like
so sweet.
I think Shyamalan as a director, he gets a lot of crap from people who think his movies are corny or think his movies are I don't know, they feel clunkier for whatever reason. But I think ultimately, whether his movies work or don't, they're always pretty sincere. And I think that he hits the emotional grace notes of this really well.
I was kind of joking before we went and saw this movie because, like I said, Gael Garcia Bernal is one of my big movie crushes. That like, I love him, but I don't want to see him get old. But like, there was something just like so sweet about him, just like just seeing him sitting there on the beach, like looking at this woman who, he's accidentally shared his entire lifetime with in a day. And the sad thing, or the kind of thing that really frames that whole plot too, is that you find out kind of early on in the movie that they were planning on getting a divorce.
Right.
And so like here they are on this like last hurrah vacation with their family before they announce to their children that they're going to be splitting up. And they're trying to like make everything look normal, but then their lifetime flashes before them, and they accidentally have to spend the rest of their lives together. And kind of as their brains develop, like at this just incredibly rapid speed, their bodies deteriorate. and they're living this horror because it is horrific,
Mhm.
but it sort of becomes framed at the very last couple of minutes where they're on screen together as actually sort of romantic and beautiful. Like, this isn't the life that we really wanted. This is not the life we wanted. We had decided this was not going to be the life that we had, but here we are, and we're about to die, and we're in this scary experience, but we know each other and we're here together, and we don't even remember what we're mad at each other about
Right.
anymore.
It's very sweet.
Like,
Mhm.
I'm losing my vision, you're losing your hearing. I don't even remember what was wrong, but I'm glad I'm here with you. And they just kind of look at each other, and I don't know, there's something just so totally touching about a lot of stuff in the movie. And then on the other hand, like, it really is got some really masterful horror scenes as well.
Right.
That they're not, it's not like a really moment by moment scary horror movie, but it's got some just really well done horrific things to look at, that the movie just sort of says, here's this thing, you got to deal with it for
Well,
just
there's a
good
character who
second.
has like a physical.
I don't want to give it away. Like, I almost feel
Yeah.
like you just gotta sit and see it. But
I mean, there's some disfigurement.
some gnarly
is,
body
is
horror, but
basically
well
what we
done,
should
I
say.
think.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, hard to look at for
Yeah.
me. So, I mean, I guess you could think of that as a negative or positive, I guess.
I don't know. I liked it.
I'll mention that the two of the other big name actors here, aside from Gael Garcia Bernal and Vicky Creeps, you have Alex Wolff, who you mentioned, playing the teenage son once he becomes teenager. And you have Thomasin McKenzie from Leave No Trace, breakout child actor who was great in that movie. She's really great here, too. She plays the daughter, the sister of Alex Wolff. And there's a scene where she sings a song to her aging father. I think it's her aging father, or maybe she sings to her mother. I forget. And then you hear that same song later on, actually sung by, I believe, Shyamalan's daughter. The credits credit it to Shyamalan's daughter. And I could imagine this being kind of like a love letter to his daughter, or some sort of like passing of the torch from parent to child. As he, I mean, Shyamalan's not an old dude. He's not necessarily at the end of his career, but I couldn't help be reminded of like Court McCarthy's Road, which he dedicates to his son, who he had when he was in his 70s, right? And in The Road, like, he's kind of writing the story about, you know, knowing that he's not going to be there for a great deal of his child's life, and wanting his child to kind of like be able to carry on and stay strong without him. And like how much of a role that Shyamalan's daughter had in the production of this movie, and like, you know, hearing her voice in the movie over the credits, suggests that like that sincerity that's underlying the movie is a pretty personal sincerity.
It's like, I don't know. I thought it was really sweet.
Yeah.
At its core, but also pretty effectively horrifying. And there was some, especially at the beginning, there was some like kind of acting that just felt a little weird to me. Some vocal stuff going on that kind of threw me off a little bit.
Shyamalan's characters always talk like they're declaring something, like they just shout it out, you know, and it can feel stilted. It can feel off. It can sound like a character is not speaking their first language, even if they are. And I think that whether that is a deal breaker for you is going to come down on a person by person basis. I have heard some defenses of, you know, Shyamalan's, like, the way that he is a director of actors, in comparing him to somebody like Wes Anderson, right? Nobody gives Wes Anderson shit when his characters don't speak like real human beings. They speak like they're in a Wes Anderson movie. Well, Shyamalan characters speak like they're in a Shyamalan movie. And to whatever extent you can kind of suspend your disbelief about that kind of thing, again, it's kind of up to the individual person. I kind of waffle on it. I don't love this movie. I think that it is very good. I'm impressed by a lot of the stuff in it, especially a lot of like the crane camera work, like the long takes that they do. There's some really creative uses of space and camera angles and all that stuff. But I'm definitely not like loving this movie as much as a lot of like Shyamalan tourists on Twitter and Letterboxd are. I've seen a lot of people give this movie 5 stars. It's nowhere close to that tier for me. I mean, we're going to talk about a 5-star movie in part 2, and I would never compare that to this. But I do think it's good, and it's the kind of movie that, like, I wish there were more of. You know, I would much rather Hollywood be bankrolling Shyamalan to make a weirdo movie like this than, say, like another Space Jam sequel, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's true.
Yeah, I was a little not sold like in the first 30 minutes, but I kind of watched with curiosity, and I really liked it by the end.
Yep. That is
Nice.
Critics Watch Old. Thanks for tuning in.
That's our series, folks. Thanks for listening.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Sorry, I feel kind of bad. Like we just talked for 20 minutes. It's a long time.
Yeah, we didn't talk for 20 minutes.
And I ate the entire time.
A lot of that was the joke review.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was like 10 minutes of an actual review and 10 minutes of explaining the part of the joke that didn't need to be explained. I mean, it was pretty cut and dry.
What I have
It's
to say about
self-explanatory,
that.
yep.
I need a snack so bad. I want a cookie.
Wow. This is good radio.
Yeah. All right. Well, carry us into the next movie that you wanted to talk about.
Which one do you want to do?
Oh boy. I guess we could talk about the Celluloid Closet in reference, I guess, sort of inspired by our talk with
Jenny Olsen.
Jenny Olsen. That was
Thanks,
great.
Jenny Olsen, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Jenny Olsen, for coming on the podcast. I'm really bad at remembering names. That's my thing. I'm bad with names. Anyway, Jenny Olsen, when you were on the podcast, she's probably not listening to this.
Jenny, my close personal friend.
She's probably not going to listen to this. But when Jenny Olsen was on the podcast, she talked to us about the Celluloid Closet, which is a book and a movie, right?
Yep.
That kind of works your way through queer depictions on film, like throughout film history.
Hollywood specifically.
Hollywood history.
Yeah.
Well, I talked a little about non-Hollywood, but not much. So we just watched that.
Like we just watched it. Like as soon as it stopped, we opened up the podcast. Yeah.
We just watched it.
That's how we do it here.
That's how we do it.
Fresh, hot takes.
So mostly it's just sort of showing from the the subtleties of something as small as like serious eye contact could be kind of queer coded back in the day. They had to be really careful about the way, or if it was depicted at all, the way it was depicted, it couldn't be seen as like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like
I'm not sure what the word is.
Endorsement. It could never be portrayed as like an endorsement of gayness. So it kind of migrated from little subtle things to, okay, definitely gay, but it's a bad thing that I'm gay and I hate myself for it, to, oh, you're gay, we're going to enact violence on you, which really impacted kind of our, like, what we see now as kind of violent.
Yeah. I would say there's like basically 4 phases or eras the documentary kind of walks through, and maybe I'm sure this is spelled out more explicitly if you just look at like the table of contents of the book. But there's the representation of quote unquote the sissy, like effeminate men played for laughs on screen,
right.
And then there is like the villainous queer, like the character at the end of Rebecca, for example, and then you get into the barrier gaze trope. With the idea of like a queer character in a film needs to die.
They can be good, they can be bad, they can be tragic, whatever the case, as long as they don't have a terrible happy ending.
And then like moving into what was contemporary depictions when the Celluloid Closet came out, which range from positive to negative. One of the big double standards that still exist when the movie came out, though, and still today, I would say, is the double standard between the acceptability of queer female relationships on screen and the acceptability of queer male relationships on screen, which is still seen as somewhat gross or taboo by general audiences, as opposed to queer female relationships, which are kind of seen as titillating to all audience members, right?
Definitely frustrating that like we have to equate homosexuality, like men loving men homosexuality, as like not manly, when there's nothing not manly about nothing.
Right.
Like who you love. Like you can still be a very masculine person and love whoever you want to love.
It also goes into like just the idea of like the policing of male sensitivity in general. Like Rebel Without a Cause is one of the movies that gets dwelled upon here. And they actually have the screenwriter of Rebel Without a Cause. And they have several like really big name screenwriters, like the guy who wrote Ben-Hur, the guy who wrote Hitchcock's Rope, the woman who wrote Cabaret. Like these people are all interviewed, and the guy who wrote Rebel Without a Cause says that he did not intend for the character of Plato to be read as gay. He intended the movie to be an exploration of male intimacy and like the way in which to be a tough guy, you can't ever express your emotions or be vulnerable with another man. But of course that gets projected onto as queer, and of course has been kind of claimed as queer by the queer community. And so it's kind of an important and weird, interesting movie. We have an episode on it if you want to go listen to the episode about it. But yeah, in general, I think this is like a good resource. It can be a good like watch list builder, as documentaries about movies can often be. I was reminded of Horror Noir. I watched a couple years ago, which was just kind of like a working through the timeline of like Black representation in the horror genre, and just like you hear about lots and lots and lots of titles that you maybe haven't seen that you can go seek out for yourself. It's not the most like stunningly put together documentary. It kind of seems like something that they could play on TV. It's definitely been outclassed by a certain type of video essay about film that exists on YouTube now. But of course, those are not usually, they don't usually come from the same place of like expertise and like historicity as something like this does. So yeah, I mean, I think we would recommend people check it out. We appreciated it.
I think I for sure thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
There are definitely some moments for me. I don't know, that just felt real, and it's interesting just to kind of think about like seeing the film industry now and like same-sex relationships or other queer relationships being looked at as more and more and more normal, and we're getting to see more and more of these portrayals in the mainstream, and it's really, really cool. But also kind of thinking about like, before I was out, and before this was quite so mainstream, even how difficult it could be to find little nuggets of stuff like that. But when you did see that, how that could be.
And it's still kind of a big
titillating and
deal,
powerful,
unfortunately,
yeah.
right? Like we talked a couple weeks ago about, I mean, we've talked in the last several weeks about the Fear Street movies, and
Right.
those are like, at least the first one and the third one have a lesbian relationship in its center. And I like had to stop and point out like, hey, isn't this a nice, cool, unique thing that we don't see every day of like a queer relationship in like a teen horror movie?
But like this is just like a Netflix special, like anybody can watch this.
Right.
Versus,
So it's
like,
good that it's accessible.
one of the big queer movies that came out like when I was growing up was what was that Joan Jett movie, The Runaways?
The Runaways, yeah.
But that, I don't feel like that ever really was like super duper like a mainstream, like everybody was going to see that, like easily accessible kind of thing. I was like something that I like kind of sneakily got at Blockbuster, and I was like hoping that my dad didn't like know what I was wanting to watch it for,
Right.
That I totally watched it for that reason.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just different now. Like it's becoming more mainstream, and that's such a great thing. Anyway, yeah, for sure. It's like to me, it's sort of mostly just a watch list generator, but I liked it, and I kind of liked just learning that portrayal of those relationships over history and how that's changed.
Yep.
So I liked it.
Zach, do you want to talk about anything?
Zach wants to talk
Are you in a
about
Space Jam mood?
Yeah, let's shift on on a documentary looking at queer portrayals and film to Space Jam 2.
Space Jam: A New Legacy.
No.
Yeah, that is actually the name.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can talk about Space Jam. Let me fix a problem real quick. I'm gonna fix. You ever just fix the problem?
What's the problem?
Oh, somebody just booked up at work, and I'm fixing the problem.
Do you need us to talk about another movie while you fix
No, we're good.
Okay.
All right. So Space Jam 2, for those who have, had the pleasure of seeing the first Space Jam, that one stars Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan has to play basketball to save the Looney Tunes. In this one, he's not really
fact that Jesse just said "Go Bulls" is proof positive of something you talk about in your piece, Zach, about like the ubiquity of Michael Jordan.
I grew up in Chicago. I grew up in Highland Park, Illinois, which is where Michael Jordan lives. You like the town I lived in, you could drive up to his gate and see the big 23. That's why I say "Go Bulls." That's pretty fucking cool. I didn't even care about. I really wanted a jersey though. Like that's how weird I was. I didn't even watch basketball. I never got one.
I might get you a jersey for Christmas.
Don't do that.
Michael
We'll
Jordan.
get you a nice.
Maybe do that. I don't know.
We'll get you a nice.
I wanted one as a
Jordan
kid though
jersey.
so bad, but I also grew up in Chicago. I wasn't just some schmo. Like that was my town.
It's again like so. Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. Like everybody knows who
Yeah.
Michael Jordan is. It's
Everybody
not a
knows
big-
who Michael
it's-
Jordan is, man.
Yeah, it's fine. And
Oh.
that's like what I rewatched the first Space Jam, and that's literally what that movie is about. It's about how fucking cool Michael Jordan is and how everybody wants to be Michael Jordan's friend. Like
Yeah.
that, like that's you were asking a couple weeks ago why Bill Murray is in Space Jam. It's because he's like, I want to be Michael Jordan's friend. Like that's the whole movie. The Looney Tunes are like, I want to be Michael Jordan's friend. Everybody wants to be. That's not the case in Space Jam 2. Everybody's like, LeBron, like you're cool, but like you're not Michael Jordan. They even have like this silly throwaway joke where they go, "We got Michael Jordan, and then Michael B. Jordan walks in, and they're like, "Oh."
Oh my god, that's so
awkward.
funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, it was literally the young critics watch old of Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Wow. LeBron James isn't cool. You know what's cool? All the intellectual property owned by Warner Brothers.
It is a little awkward, I want to think, for Michael B. Jordan to have said, you know what? I could just have another celebrity name. I could choose any name. I could be like Anne Hathaway. Like, that's not her fucking birth name. But I'm going to be Michael Jordan, but I'm going to be Michael B. Jordan.
Was he going to be Anne B. Hathaway? Like, what the hell are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
He could be anything. He could make his name anything. He's like, nope, fuck that. My name is
Why
Michael Jordan.
Why are you yelling at him? Like, yell at his parents. His parents.
Like that's probably actually his birth name.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure it is. But he could have picked like a celebrity. He could have picked a star name. People do it all the time. He didn't.
Don't you think that's a pretty cool star name, Michael Jordan? You're the guy whose name has the same name as Michael Jordan.
It's like somebody being named Jesus Christ, but like his middle name is like Steve.
Jesus H. Christ.
Jesus Steven.
Anyway, Zach was explaining the complex plot of Space Jam 2: A New Legacy.
So Space Jam 2. I mean, you hit the points pretty much. Like they go into this place called the Serververse, and it has every Warner Brothers property known to man. And Don Cheadle is Algae Rhythm, and he's like, "Yo, LeBron, you suck. I'm gonna play you in basketball." And LeBron's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go get the Looney Tunes." But then they have to like go to different properties to get the Looney Tunes, and so he goes to like he has to go like you see the Looney Tunes in like Mad Max Fury Road, you see the Looney Tunes in what is it? The 90s Superman Batman comic cartoon show. And then you see the Looney Tunes in Casablanca because that's what kids are looking for. And so then he gets all the Looney Tunes. Exactly. Like a nice Play It Again Sam reference with Ingrid Bergman. Like that was killing it with the 8-year-olds who this movie was geared toward.
Yeah.
And so then they have to play a game and like LeBron wins and he has to like prove that this one's weird because so like Space Jam 1 is about how cool Michael Jordan is and the whole game is there's no point to it other than like Michael Jordan's fucking awesome. The end. In this one they decide to like prove that LeBron is a good dad, which I was like, that's a weird route to go with this.
His personal brand is about like being a good person in a way that Michael Jordan's never was.
No, well, and that goes down to like it comes down to like how like LeBron is much more like he's much more conscious.
He's a jerk. Is he? Yeah, Michael Jordan's totally a jerk.
Yeah, Michael Jordan, but that was just how people were in his era. Like they weren't very. Yeah, they weren't very engaged with anything. You know, it's kind of not to go on a whole tangent, but like you have like that Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like activist athlete kind of group of people. Bill Russell, like are like these like giant athletes who are also big like activists. And you go through like the Michael Jordan era, and they're not really engaged in any of that. They're just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna like make my money and like move on. And now it's kind of circle around again. Like LeBron's very active in like Black Lives Matter and other causes that like come up, and so it's a whole thing.
Nice.
Like Michael Jordan, he just doesn't care about that stuff. It's very clear that he's very into like being fucking Michael Jordan. Which if I was Michael Jordan, I'd be the same way. I mean, he has more money than God. I don't know. Space Jam: New Legacy, it's fucking awful. I don't recommend it at all. like you just have like references to, like, I don't know, it just becomes like a minutia of like references and like I know this is like the second time in 3 weeks that I've gone on a rant about like video game. I'm telling you, like video games, like the relationship between movies and video games is where it's at. It's not movies and TV, it's not movies and books, it's not movies and theater, it's movies and video games, because that's where people are finding like their inspiration for narratives. Because like this whole, rather than it being like a basketball game, it's literally kind of like a 2K game or like NBA Jam. Like it's like it's a bunch of like power-ups um and things like that. And it's very like, so one of the things that happens is like LeBron's son gets, captured by Don Cheadle's character. And he like goes, well, your dad says that you don't want to play basketball and you should probably practice more. Why do you need to practice? Like, we can make you good. And like sits there and like makes all of his basketball, like he pretty much like goes like edits into his like attributes and like makes all of his basketball skills amazing and makes him like an amazing basketball player, which then was making me think about people who like play like 2K and stuff now. And that's what they do is they like go and they like make their player mode, and then they like up all the sliders to make them really good. They max it out, and then they go and like play, because you don't want to play and like go through the trials of being like, no, you're playing fucking 2K. Like you want to be amazing. You want to like, dunk and shoot 3-pointers all day. And so it was just interesting to me, like that it's very like engaged with like gamer culture. It very much feels like a Twitch stream, like the entire time, like you have like this game going on and you kind of have like all these different pockets of places that are like kind of commenting in. You have these two commenters played by Ernie Johnson, who is a play-by-play analyst, an NBA play-by-play analyst, and Little Rel Howery, who is Little Rel Howery.
Back for that Uncle Joe money. Is that what it's called? Uncle Joe? Little Rel Howery's like basketball. He's like an old man playing basketball.
Shit.
Uncle Joe.
It's the Kyrie movie.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's you know who's less bankable than LeBron? Fucking Kyrie. Uncle Drew.
Uncle Drew.
So anyway, though, Space Jam 2, I go read my review. I talk a little bit about, I get into some nice otaku culture and some like French theory, French philosophy. So it's like, if that's your cup of tea while you're reading a Space Jam 2 review. I don't know what else you guys want.
I have a question. So Don Cheadle plays an AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they name him Al because Al spelled out looks like AI, even though it's AL?
Yes, it's because it's algorithm.
I didn't even get that part.
Because he's like that, like that's what he's this AI algorithm that literally.
Yeah.
So that's like why he can like do all this stuff, because he's just It's just it's an exhausting movie. It's like I can't tell you how exhausting of a movie it is. It's just there's so much shit thrown at you, and all of it it's just a bunch of stuff that you don't like. You're like, I don't like any of this. I don't like the direction this is going. This makes me sad. And then it ends.
It's been pointed out on Twitter many times, but I feel like it must go remarked that they put Vanessa Redgrave's character from The Devils in this, despite the fact that Warner Brothers will not release any edition of The Devils on home video.
They do that, and they have like I mentioned it in my review. They have the Clockwork Orange guys. You're just like, is this movie for kids? Again,
well, I mean, it's Ready Player One, right? Like this is a thing that even if people haven't seen it, like The Shining, Ready Player One, like it carries some cultural value.
So I rewatched Ready Player One just to kind of like give myself a little bit of a reference point while writing the review. I'll give it credit. It's still very it's kind of, that's also a very overwhelming, and it's very cringy, but like it's a movie that is actively engaged with the fact that like we're like, it knows what it is. If that makes sense. Like it knows it's gonna like it's bouncing these references off. That doesn't make it better, like a better product.
Would you say that Space Jam 2 doesn't know what it is? Having not seen Space Jam 2, I can't imagine that's the case.
it's a little bit, it's trying to like Ready Player One is much more upfront about, and it's like talking to you about it. Space Jam 2, like you mentioned, like they don't go, hey, it's Vanessa Redgrave's character from The Devils. It's just everything's kind of like melted into the back walls, and so it's not even like it's making references, but it's also just like not, it's just making reference that's, it's not even like throwing at you. It's just like, why are the Clockwork Orange people there? Why is the Devil's person there? Why is Pennywise there? Like it never goes, hey, look, it's Pennywise from It. It's just Pennywise is just in your, and so yeah, it's like making a reference, but at the same time, it's not like Ready Player One is just constantly over. It's constantly going, this is Back to the Future. This is
The Shining.
this is The Shining. This is The Goonies.
good
This is
either,
the
though.
Yeah.
No, they're both
Ready
bad.
Player One doesn't sound good to me either.
Don't recommend either of them. Do not
Zach,
recommend
you have
either
this
of them.
strange knack of describing movies that, and you say like this movie is absolute trash, don't watch it. But the way you describe it makes me think, oh, that sounds interesting. Like what you did with Wonder Woman 1984, where you were like, you were just consistently the whole review, you were just saying how bad it was, and I was like,
Mhm.
that sounds really
I
interesting.
must see this movie.
It's because I'm good at reviewing movies.
I guess.
Oh, drop the mic.
Anyway, thank you for listening to Cinematary.
Yeah,
We're good at what we do. What
You
can we
literally,
say?
yeah, you like that means I'm just good at,
360 something episodes ain't nothing.
it's taking me 362 episodes, but I've got it down.
Wow.
No, I'm a wonderful storyteller, and I know how to review a movie. What can I say?
And humble.
And I have a tight 5, so I can, unfortunately,
that's some shade.
What is that?
yeah.
That means he can always get it done in 5 minutes. He can
No,
answer this review
it
in
means
5
like
minutes.
I could go up on stage and probably do at least like 5 minutes of like comedy. Going back to the whole thing at the beginning, like I don't think you could walk up on a stage and like do
Ugh.
a tight 5.
Zach, this is maybe the meanest thing you've ever said to me. I'm like, a little devastated.
It would be funny to watch Jesse stammer for 5 minutes.
I would love it. I would watch. I would buy a ticket to watch Jesse.
You
go
could
do
call that stand-up comedy.
Anyway, all right, we're gonna go into
Comedy
break.
in which someone is standing up on stage.
relentlessly. This is so hard.
We're gonna go into the break.
I'd like
We'll
to
be back.
record
We're gonna talk
murder.
about Brief Encounter after this.
I thought that was a really solid part one.
A lot of jokes.
A lot of good jokes all around.
A lot of goofs, just lots
Good.
of goofs from
Just
people.
lots of good. Whew.
Do you need to go get a snack?
I do need something to drink. I'm parched.
I
Jeez Louise, what's a gal gotta do?
need some Wawa.
Need some Wawa
I
in
need some
here.
Wawa. Stat. Turn the microphones off or something.
Oh.
The headphones.
This is killer video right here.
It is.
Killer
Yeah,
video.
thanks for tuning into the
There's
live.
nobody here. It's just me, myself, and I.
Gotta plug in the old computer. What's our movie next week?
Jour de fête.
Oh yeah, you've been trying to get that one on here for years.
Get some Tati.
Have you seen
Get
that one
some.
already?
Yeah, I've seen all of Tati.
Okay.
But I'm excited because since it's his first movie, I'll be like, oh, well, I guess I got to watch all the rest of them, and then I'll do that. And I'll be happy.
Does it fall within that kind of chronology of the other Hulu films, or is it its own thing?
It's kind of its own thing. It's based on there's a short film because I have the box set, and there's a short film version of it that he did before, and then he kind of expanded out the short film, and it's kind of a Hulu character, but it's not like in the Hulu.
It's not following the arc of the Hulu movies.
No.
Yeah.
Jour de fête.
You're gonna watch Jesse eat.
Wonderful.
Girls gotta
That's
eat good,
exactly.
you know what I mean? This is
Girls, I wore this to work today, and the editor of the newspaper was like, "That's a cool shirt. I want one." So I got Jessica. If you're listening, if you could hook us up with a shirt. And two,
Has he eaten her snacks, or would he literally?
I've
just
never,
look at that
I've
and
never
say,
had her
"That's
snacks.
true."
I'm just repping. You know, I'm just repping with the
Wait,
people.
show now the live. I think when you did it before you went live. Girls gotta eat. Sorry, I can't see the rest of that. Can you stand up, sir?
It says girls got to eat food.
No, it doesn't.
Girls got to eat food.
Girls
I mean, that
gotta
is true because if they don't eat food, they die. So.
They do die.
eat.
You do got to give it
This
to
is a
them.
biological certainty.
It's true. If you don't eat food, you will die.
Make sure you eat.
If you haven't heard this, you're welcome.
People are like,
No, I've never had Jessica's bakery treats either, but I'm just repping here, you know. I'm
That's
just,
so nice. You're a nice friend.
you know,
You do so much for her.
Good friend.
I guess. I just wore the T-shirt today. I also did find this little thing about all these little Instagram tricks I was gonna send to her. Thought that would help the business.
Yeah, cool.
We had this really depressing seminar where we had to talk about how to Instagram told us what they wanted us to do to make their to work their algorithm, and I was just depressed.
Thanks, Zuck.
Yeah, it wasn't just it was just no, this is how you game our algorithm, and I was like, that's not how. Okay,
You should really put on your blue light glasses since you're looking at your screen.
That's okay.
Wow. What?
Did you make your problem go away?
Cats, what the fuck are you doing? Did you turn the light on again? Bastards. You little bastards. Bunch of bastards. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
What's the spooky ghost that came out of his finger?
Oh my god.
Just turn the light off
So on YouTube, this is all in.
Yeah.
This does not get edited out. This is good stuff. I'm glad people watch this.
What, me calling my cats a bastard and then hitting my knee on this metal
Are you
thing?
going to get some water and a snack?
This is what the people want. This is podcasting.
It's streaming.
We're
doing a lot of things.
We're just people. Why would people watch this?
We're just people.
If
I
you're
mean,
watching
people
this,
listen to
please comment.
podcasts
Seriously.
because they want to feel like they have friends.
That's nice.
Right.
We'll be your friend.
We will not be your friends.
I don't want to
We
be your
will let
friend.
you pretend we are your friends.
If you're watching this, comment and say hi. I won't read it.
Just don't be
but
weird
do
about it.
Watch Barb and Star, by the way. It's good.
Yeah. Was I right that it was kind of up your alley?
Yeah. It wasn't as good as Pop Star, though.
Well, a few things are. I might like Barb and Star a little more than Pop Star personally.
Pop Star has quite. I don't think I've laughed hard. The gay rights song on Pop Star is the funniest thing.
I think that Pop Star is like basically perfect every time music is happening, and when
That's
music
fair.
is not happening, it's only sometimes.
No. The best non-music part is when Bill Hader's talking about flatlining.
I do not remember this.
What? Who?
You don't remember? Oh, where he's talking about how he's like, yeah, sometimes I just like, what is he? He goes like into a coma, and then he gets people to like go clear and like resuscitate him, and that's what he does like in his free time. And he's like explaining that whole process, and it's fucking stupid.
Yikes.
It cracks me up. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Brief Encounter.
Well, I think Jesse needs to finish her little snack here.
Sorry.
Oh, come! Will you hurry the hell up?
I think a couple of my favorite parts in Barb and Star were Jamie Dornan's second musical sequence where he's like singing to the seagulls on the beach. Also, I don't. Was it Jamie Dornan who had the scene with the Morgan Freeman crab? That was a great scene. I also liked the Reba McEntire Trish scene.
The Trish part did make me laugh. They were just like, Trish at Christmas? Get out.
And they kept cutting back also to the
Oh,
talking club, what
the
they're
talking
about.
club?
Like, I
That
like
was good.
looking at Wicker, but I don't like sitting on it.
Well, the talking club just made me want to watch the bit, the sketch, and I think you should leave, where Vanessa Bayer is like at a brunch and is filling out Instagram captions. So for anybody who's watched, I think you should leave. That's what I was thinking of, which is funny.
We need to watch it.
More strong. I'm almost done.
Let's. Do you think we would get? Do you think we get hit by YouTube if I just started playing it? I think you should leave clip.
I think that you would get hit. Yeah.
I just want to watch this prank show one that I've watched at least 90 times since it came out a couple weeks ago.
These things are all done by algorithm, like
Algae
somebody-
Rhythm.
Algae Rhythm is watching. It's not like
Don
Algae
Cheadle.
Rhythm himself is watching, but it's like they have certain like waveforms, like audio waveforms in the algorithm that like they will instantly recognize if they hear them. So like I've gotten a stream, like a Dark Souls stream, flagged like as soon as I started it because I had like copyrighted music playing and nobody was watching it, but you know, Twitch was able to just like recognize it automatically. So that's, I'm sure, also why our music videos got shut down too.
What music videos?
We did an episode on music videos where we had music videos playing.
Oh.
It was a cool trick.
How do we get away with in the when you're starting part 2 and you play like a little music bit? How do we get away with that?
Well, that's
only...
that's the Apple Podcast thing. I don't think they are nearly as stringent about that.
But does that not play when we
Nope,
do these
it does
videos?
not. Livestream doesn't have that. Zach edits that in later. All right, let's talk about Brief Encounter.
And is it brief? Can we? Let's just peg this for later. Let's talk about why is Trevor Howard hot?
The Doctor?
Yeah, he just is. I don't know why.
Well, you can talk about that in the episode if you want.
I love that. That sounds really gay.
He's just super hot.
All
right.
I love that for you, Zach. Welcome.
Welcome.
All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 362 of Cinematary.
Okay, sorry, can I stop you? My thing just started. It continued the same track. I need to make a new track. Okay, one more time.
Right.
Okay. Wait, are you sure that's? Oh. Okay.
You want to count us?
In 3, 2, 1. And welcome back to part 2 of episode 362 of Cinematary. In this part, we'll be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1945's Brief Encounter. Directed by David Lean from a script by Noël Coward. The film stars Celia Johnson, Trevor Howard, Stanley Holloway, and Joyce Carey. Returning home from a shopping trip to a nearby town, bored suburban housewife Laura Jessen is thrown by happenstance into an acquaintance with virtuous Dr. Alec Harvey. Their casual friendship soon develops during their weekly visits into something more emotionally fulfilling than either expected, and they must wrestle with the potential havoc their deepening relationship would have on their lives and the lives of those they love. The film is based on Noël Coward's one-act play Still Life from 1936, one of 10 short plays in the cycle Tonight at 8:30. Designed by Gertrude Lawrence and Coward himself, and had to be performed in various combinations as triple bills. All scenes in Still Life are set in the refreshment room of a railway station, the fictional Milford Junction. When Lean read Coward's first draft of what would become Brief Encounter, he hated it. He told Coward there was nothing to hold an audience. When Coward asked him how he could do that, Lean came up with the idea of telling the story in flashback. They opened with a seemingly innocuous scene in which a talkative woman interrupts two friends sitting in a railway cafe. Only as the story unfolded in flashback would the audience realize that the scene was really about a final farewell between two lovers. According to Lean, Coward took his suggestions and rewrote the screenplay in 4 days. Anthony Havelock Allen, however, claimed that Coward never worked on the screenplay. Rather, he, Lean, and co-producer Ronald Neame did all the work, inventing additional scenes to flesh out Coward's 30-minute play. They received the only screenplay credit. Neame missed much of the writing process as he was in the U.S. researching American filmmaking techniques. On his return, he says the 3 credited writers met with Coward frequently to create dialogue and coming up with a new title. Coward suggested they emphasize the smallness of the picture. When the word brief came up in brainstorming sessions, Coward's personal artistic supervisor Gladys Calthrop suggested Brief Encounter. Brief Encounter was shot during the final days of World War II, going into production in January of 1945. Filming was completed in May, with an interruption on May 4th to celebrate the German surrender in the war. Originally, the train station scenes were set for London, but with the threat of German rocket attacks during the last days of the war, the company was evacuated outside the city. The producers chose Carnforth Station in southeast England because it was one of the largest provincial stations and was far enough from the coast that they would have time to turn off the lights in the event of an air raid and blackout warning. Shooting at Carnforth Station usually started at 10:30 p.m. and continued until 6 a.m. before the morning commute started. Another advantage offered by the station was the fact that it had a ramp leading up to the train platform. Lean thought it would be more effective for the actors to be running up the ramp to catch their trains, and that running up steps might have made them look ridiculous. In her book, Noël Coward, in 1987, Frances Gray says that Brief Encounter is, after the major comedies, the one work of Coward's that almost everybody knows and has probably seen. It is featured frequently on television, and its viewing figures are invariably high. Its story is that of an unconsummated affair between two married people. Coward is keeping his lovers in check because he cannot handle the energies of a less inhibited love in a setting shorn of the wit and exotic flavor of his best comedies. To look at the script shorn of David Lean's beautiful camera work, deprived of an audience who would automatically approve of the final sacrifice, is to find oneself asking awkward questions. Frances Gray acknowledges a common criticism of the play. Why do the characters not consummate the affair? Or why do they not fuck? Gray argues that their problem is class consciousness. The working classes can act in a vulgar way, and the upper class can be silly. But the middle class is, or at least considers itself, the moral backbone of society, a notion whose validity Coward did not want to question or jeopardize, as the middle classes were Coward's principal audience. However, Laura, in her narration, stresses that what holds her back is her horror at the thought of betraying her husband and her settled moral values. Tempted though she is by the force of a love affair, indeed, it is this very tension which has made the film such an endearing favorite. The film was released amid the social and cultural context of the Second World War, when brief encounters were thought to be commonplace and women had far greater sexual and economic freedom than previously. In British National Cinema from 1997, Sarah Street argues that Brief Encounter thus articulated a range of feelings about infidelity, which invited easy identification, whether it involved one's husband, lover, children, or country. In 1946, James Agee said in The Nation, quote, that Brief Encounter was a pleasure to watch and deeply touching, a sort of vanity-sized Anna Karenina. And in 1946, the New York Times called it an uncommonly good little picture, and one which frankly designed to appeal to that group of film goers who are provoked by the, quote, usual movie tripe, which is, typical condescending New York Times. So let's go ahead and jump into the review here. Brief Encounter. What do y'all think?
I'm going to start strong here and say that I think Brief Encounter is a masterpiece. And it is one of the only movies that I've watched in recent years where, like, as soon as it ended, I was like, I have watched one of the best movies of all time, or I have watched maybe the best movie in this genre. And it actually inspired me to make a list of, like, what are the 10 greatest romance movies of all time to me? again, I had to put Brief Encounter on that list, even though like I had just seen it. So, I mean, I think that it's just like a box of emotions. Like you open it up and you instantly feel all of these emotions very intensely. Like I think it is very hard to watch this movie and not get swept up in like the really complex emotionality of it. Like there's just a lot of feelings they're experienced by this character, and they're depicted so vividly on screen. There's love, there's lust, there's guilt, there's shame, there's sadness, mourning, loss. All these things are there, and it's also like a very like compulsively watchable, entertaining, funny movie that is just like top to bottom like amazing filmmaking and acting too. Like I can't think of a bad thing to say about this movie, and I also think it's like very profound and like has a lot of great food for thought about how relationships and like the human experience of love works. So I mean, we can get into all that stuff more later, but that's my general take. Like 10/10, it slaps. So good.
Was this the first time you had seen it?
This is the second time I've seen
Okay.
it. And I was really glad to show it to Jessy this time, and I think she liked it a lot too.
Yeah, Jessy, what'd you make of it?
I thought it was just beautiful. I guess I was like
That was really believable, by the way.
yeah.
Gosh, it was so believable. It was so amazing.
It better be.
I was moved to tears, and I changed my life.
No, I thought it was very moving for sure. I think I was surprised by it because with it being, what is it, 1930s or 40s?
This is a 40s movie.
Is it? And during our code era, but it wasn't. It's English language, but it was.
It's British.
British, so I guess they didn't have to follow the code. But it kind of threw me because I guess I was thinking that the relationship was going to have to be more subtle than it was for the time period. And there's a scene where you don't even see her. Like, is there a scene where you see a bedroom, like her and her husband in separate beds?
They're in separate beds.
Yeah, in separate beds. Yeah. So they can't show that, but it's a movie that completely centers around her basically having an affair. And I guess I thought it was going to be more subtle with like them continuing to meet and knowing, and that like it's a very unspoken thing, but it was. I mean, just the moment where he like professes that he actually loves her and stuff, it was just also shocking, and seeing them kiss and stuff like that. I was surprised that it was able to be as unsubtle as it was, and I'm glad that it was able to do that, because you up until that point you're really, really brimming with these emotions. You can really, really feel this real chemistry between those two actors, and you're wondering, that they're both feeling it, it, and it's just not been said, and it's surprising and powerful when I guess it finally gets said, and they both acknowledge it, and they acknowledge that like they're both partaking in this thing that they shouldn't be, and they keep I don't know. Really beautiful.
Yeah. No, I think I saw this mentioned in a lot of the writing. They had David Thompson wrote about this movie like 3 or 4 years ago, and he ranked it as the most romantic movie of all time. In this ranking for The Guardian. And what is effective about it is just that, you mentioned like the common, or like I mentioned in the notes, the common criticism is that they don't like consummate the relationship in a way, and that's almost like the best part of the whole thing is they never are able to, like, it's constantly like kind of these small moments, these kind of brush moments where they get a few moments where they actually get to embrace. I mentioned
the shoulder on the hand on the shoulder.
It's all small
twice
stuff
at the beginning and the end, and like obviously that is quoted in Todd Haynes' Carol, which is kind of using this as a touchstone. And I think you could maybe say that like In the Mood for Love uses this as a touchstone.
That or Before Sunset.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are all movies that are also playing on what this kind of establishes, which is is people who are kind of brushing up against kind of following what the desires they want to do, but are unable to kind of consummate them. And like that's what's so incredible about that sequence where he asks her to go up to the flat, or he's like, I'm going back to the flat, and then he like kisses her, and then it has that cut and that train like rushes through, which you're just like, hell yeah. And then it cuts back, and it's just such a rush scene, and there's so many the way that David Lean like cuts in this movie is great. Like you also have late in the film, you have the replay of the scene from the beginning where you have that just horrid woman coming to like interrupt that whole scene.
Oh god.
And he has this cut where she had gone up to walk to the counter, and Trevor Howard's character had like left, and Celia Johnson's like watching him leave, and then he has the woman just kind of come out of frame and sit down like right in front of you and like completely cut off
exactly where he was.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was such a wonderful camera placement, and there's so many like little touches of that, like that's why, you know, I think a lot of the central romance is what draws a lot of people to the movie, but this movie also is insanely well directed. I mean, it's David Lean.
Another moment in that same sequence you're talking about, Zach, that's the scene where you don't know at first when you see the scene at the beginning of the movie, but she attempts to take her own life, or thinks about taking her own life. And when we see that scene again at the end of the movie and we get her perspective on it, we get a shot of her face as I think this woman is jabbering at her, and the camera frame just like slowly goes askew, like it starts tilting to the left or the right, and she kind of like is like in this frenzied panic state, and she runs outside. She runs like right up to the camera lens, and the train rushes past, so she has not made it to the front of the train, and like the windows from the train passing are kind of like strobing on her face, and as that's happening, the camera that is still kind of like cocked to one side slowly sits right back up in the center again. And like, oh man, there's just so many like beautiful like flourishes like that.
Well, you have that. You have this feels very like evocative of like Carol, but you have that scene where he, like Jesse mentioned, he tells her for the first time that he loves her, and then she's looking out the window, and you like see like all the like kind of her face is kind of broken up because the window is like reflecting, and she's smiling, and then that's when she starts playing like their life together like on the window pane, and it's just such an
all
like
one unbroken or like an imagined unbroken shot.
But that's one thing, and this can kind of veer us into this discussion, like differentiating this like a movie from a play, which because like
I was shocked when you told me that it was all set in that diner. I can't imagine this movie
but you also like think of like what makes the movie effective is that one you have the voiceover, like you couldn't have that voiceover necessarily in the play, and it's
so
effective.
brilliant.
And then like two, you have those visual flourishes, like the way that Lean shoots it, where he kind of inserts you into like the psyche and like that anxiety of that entire relationship is what like kind of draws you in. And then two, like we're talking about, like the cuts, the camera placements, just like it's just so impeccably edited, like it's just constantly manipulating you into getting caught up into like the frenzy of this relationship. Like, I mean, I'm sure it was a good play, but it's so fucking effective as a movie because of the way that they utilize all the tools.
I'm glad that you brought up the voiceover too, which is generally thought of as kind of a no-no in screenwriting and filmmaking, but is used to such great effect here. And like I think this movie, more than just about any movie I've seen, like captures like a really, really high level of psychological realism. Like I really feel like I am hearing this woman's interior monologue when she is talking to the camera. Like, so for example, the scene where she's on her way home from that breakup, and the lady is talking at her, and she's like thinking to herself like how much she hates this woman, and then says, I wish she was dead. No, I don't think that. That's a horrible thing to think.
But you can think that. I mean,
right.
I wish she was dead.
There's just a lot of that in here, and also like the way in which the psychological realism is realized. I think like allows for the character to have a great deal of complexity to her, right? Like the whole narration is delivered as if she were speaking to her husband.
Mhm.
Like she's confessing this to her husband, who she loves. Like this is not about, I wish I was out of my relationship because I would rather be in this relationship. It's like both of these relationships are great. And the only person I feel like I could tell about this relationship is my husband. And so there's like, again, this like really complex emotion, the push and pull, and like the feeling of multiple things at one time, is kind of like what this movie is most successful at capturing for me.
It's kind of this cathartic release for her because she'll never really be able to. I mean, she all just gets like swept up in this whole thing so fast, and part of her wants to continue to pretend it's not happening, but part of her keeps showing up on those Thursday afternoons and keeps doing it.
And he always like gives her an out too.
Right.
He's like, I'm gonna go to the flat. If you want to have sex with me, I'll be at the flat. I'm not gonna make you.
Yeah.
I'll wait for you there. And she eventually does make the choice.
Yeah.
Right.
But I guess like she probably holds that secret to her grave is what you're supposed to assume. But
Right.
her getting to kind of still like say all that out, even if it's just in her own monologue, I feel like is kind of a release for her. Like
Another
she can do that
another incredible example of like this movie, like the legacy of this movie, is also Bridges of Madison County.
Never seen that.
Yeah, that one also is a movie. I mean, that one's even more directly like influenced by this because it's another where Meryl Streep's character has this affair.
Mhm.
Now they do consummate it, but you know that's whatever.
Different time.
But it's this affair that happens that she kind of keeps pocketed that she's like reflecting on later on in her life. But I think, you know, thinking about like that, like Carol and In the Mood for Love and Before Sunset, I mean, what about Brief Encounter to you kind of stands out, you know, as that kind of, you know, grandfather to those movies?
I mean, I think that the main reason that it is a touchstone is just like how emotionally intense it is, right? If you're going to quote a romance movie in your, you know, very intensely felt romance movie like a Carol or like a Before Sunrise or something, you might as well quote this one, right? Especially because these are all stories about relationships that kind of like intersect very briefly and then you know, go their separate ways, or maybe not in the case of the Before movies, but there's like a lot of crisscrossing. I also think that it's like an interesting movie to think about in relation to movies about polyamory, like we did Le Bonheur by Agnes Varda, and we did Professor Marston and the Wonder Women just a couple of weeks ago. And this movie is like very much stays mostly within the bounds of like the monogamous romance movie. You know, it's a movie about an affair, but it's a movie that's like really pressing on the borders of that and kind of exploring like the inherent limitations of monogamy in a way that also like Eyes Wide Shut does as well.
I think that what's kind of special about this though, and I mean, I'm sure it's portrayed like this in other movies too, but just how like, you know, perfectly innocent their like affection for each other is, you know. It's not like this like, and not that romance shouldn't be about lust and like having really strong sexual feelings for somebody. That's perfectly okay and normal too, and you know, a big part of a romance with somebody.
Good.
But I think like this movie really focuses in on just this like comfortable chemistry that they have.
They really enjoy each other's company.
And just like how unavoidable those feelings are that just develop so, I don't know, so beautifully, but so like quickly. I like that quote that you put in your first review the first time you watched it, Zach. You put, "I fell in love. I didn't realize such a violent thing could happen to ordinary people," because I think it really can just come as like this, oh whoops, like you just get like whooped up into something,
right?
And you're like, I did that. What is happening? Oh
and
my
also
goodness.
the like the rarity of that experience in life in general, right? Like the movie, one of the central images of the movie is the train station, And Makoto Shinkai, the Japanese anime filmmaker, uses train stations a lot in his romance movies because they're really good for capturing this type of fleeting, crisscrossy sort of romance where trains they're on a track, they're kind of stuck in one area. And like every now and then they intersect with another train, but they're not going to intersect with all the trains, right? Like it is kind of a neat metaphor for how we kind of like bounce in and out of each other's lives seemingly at random, and how like and like how magical, I guess it can be, like, to use kind of a cliche term, to like bounce into the life of somebody that you like instantly click with, because that is not a thing that happens all the time. Like I think this movie kind of like captures the specialness of that experience, and like how like soul crushing it is to feel as though you have to just bury that and never acknowledge it, right?
It also understands like I think they froze. Oh, there they
No,
are.
I can hear you.
It also understands like this, like kind of the anxiety and like the struggle to like not trust the other person, but like believe that the other person is on the same like wavelength as you.
Right,
Like that's a lot of the movie. Like you think of like after that first time that they meet, the second time is when he like doesn't show up, and she's kind of like, oh well, you know,
yeah,
this fucking dude, you know, whatever. Like I don't even like him. Like I don't even care. I'm just gonna go back.
Yeah.
Like who gives a shit? And then he comes at the very end, and it's like all that kind of gets swept away because he like picks up everything
it's
in the
this
last like
huge
5 seconds.
crescendo. Yeah,
It is, but like the lead up to all that is just like all of this like excruciating anxiety, and like Celia Johnson does such an
right.
amazing job of like bottling all that. Like you just like in her face and in the dialogue of the like inner monologue that she has going on, like it's just that's a lot of where it's just excruciating.
And even when it's going well, like even after they've both confessed their love for one another and such, and they're like making regular dates, there's still like a great deal of agony in the relationship because she only sees him on Thursday afternoons. And she talks about like, I spent the rest of the week like in a fog, or I forget the actual word that she says, but like you just see her like sitting in her separate bed with her husband, just like staring off into the ceiling, like, oh God, I'm feeling these really intense emotions and I can't do anything about them but wait. Like that is such an agonizing experience. So like, I mean, to sound like a broken record here, like this movie captures like the multi-dimensional nature of like having feelings for another person. Like there's always kind of like pain and loneliness and like isolation that goes along with like the longing for somebody else. Like if you're longing, that probably means that you are, you know, wanting something more than you have, or wanting something that you're not certain if is reciprocated, or something like that. And this movie just like deals with the dual-sided nature of that so well.
Gosh, yeah, it's just a breathtaking movie.
Mm-hmm.
You also have, and this can kind of lead us into a small discussion, but you also have just kind of, you have the kind of queer subtext to it, not necessarily in the text itself, but in just because of Noel Coward's sexuality.
I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah,
you have like this whole level of the inability to kind of follow through with the relationship that you would like to have, and the inability to kind of express that, you know, like that the whole scene when she, like at the beginning and the end, when she's like she's been replaying the whole thing in her head and like is unable to like kind of just say it to her husband. Like there is, you know, I think a lot of that comes into play just in the anxiety that we're talking about of the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even know if I knew about Noel Coward's sexuality, but that definitely does color the way that you see the film of like a relationship that you have to keep secret or can never tell anybody about, right? I'm also reminded of All That Heaven Allows, with like the way in which that movie deals with a taboo relationship between people of two different classes. But of course, Rock Hudson, the male lead, is gay, and so like the whole movie kind of becomes queer coded if you're thinking about that. Like it's kind of exploring the nature of a closeted relationship or a relationship that is not approved of by broader society. And of course, like polyamorous relationships fit into that category as well. Things that are still very taboo and not like allowed to be talked about in a polite company.
It's funny, like her husband almost vaguely like hints like, "Oh, do what you want. I just don't want to know about it." Because like she says,
He's
something
like, invite
"Oh,
him to lunch when I'm not here.
yeah." He's like, "Ugh, do what you want. I just don't want to like just do it. I don't care."
And he's such a sweet guy.
Yeah.
Like you really are meant to see him in the like loving gaze that she sees him in. Like the only thing you really see him do in this movie is like do the crossword.
It's just doing the crossword.
He does it in such a gentle way and talks to her so affectionately and thoughtfully that like even when he's sort of tuning her out and just like giving these pat responses, you can tell that he has strong feelings for her and that she reciprocates those. And it's just tragic for her that like she kind of lives in a world where that has to be the only thing, right?
Listen, old girl, you know it's a struggle to just love you sometimes.
Old girl, yeah.
Old girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that cracked me up about a lot of this movie is just like the like it felt almost like a British parody at times. Like it was just like, oh come now, we can't be dilly dallying. It's what is this? You know, this frivolous activities. You're just like, oh my god, just shut the hell up, Queen. Queen as in Queen Elizabeth, not anyway.
Not the queen whom we stand.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other brief encounter stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean,
Trevor Howard, hot? Question mark.
He's got a real wrinkly face.
Dude, he's also hot in Third Man though too. And then I saw that he's in Ryan's Daughter with Robert Mitchum, and then I was like, man, can you imagine having like a movie like this Trevor Howard with like Night of the Hunter, Robert Mitchum, like talk like everybody would be going to bed.
Gosh, I don't know. They're just they both just have the sweetest little faces. Like the whole movie, I think
they don't look like movie stars though, right? They look like ordinary people.
He does. He just looks like a little sweetie, and he's like, "I'm in love with you," and it's just so, it's just so beautifully. I don't know. There's just something just so wholesome about his whole character, and the way like she watches him, she realizes she falls in love with him. You just see it happen in her face.
It's when he's talking about his specialty, right?
Yeah, when he was talking about like his real big passion for preventative medicine, and he was going on, and he's just like, you can see how lit up he is, and you can see in her face like, oh God, this happened to me. I'm in love with him. Like you just see it happen.
And she's like asking him to tell her about other like strains of the virus or whatever he's talking about. And like obviously she doesn't care. She's like, I just like hearing you talk.
Yeah.
I like watching
and
you
it's
say
just like
things to me.
it's that moment I think the two of them both realize like this is not friendship.
Yeah.
Like we're this is a romance.
Right.
We're feeling something for each other. And,
yeah.
But while they're talking about preventative medicine, like it's so cute.
It's fucking romantic.
Yeah.
What did you all make? Any of like the side characters kind of stand out? You have like that B plot going on between the little police guy and the woman.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Like he comes in every night and like sees if she'll wink at him to come back later or something. So funny.
Well, then you have like the part where the two guys are like kind of harassing her, and he comes and like and he keeps going, hop it, hop it, hop it, and then like she leaves, and she's just like, you can come back later, and he's like, oh, well, hip hip a J, you know.
You're doing such a great British impression. It's just
pip pop it up.
another actor who doesn't look like a movie star but is like given a really emotionally I don't know a realistic and fulfilling romantic life on screen. So yeah, I like those characters a lot.
You have that just fucking bastard woman who comes and ruins their entire last moment together, who should be thrown into the train tracks.
Should be such like perfect friends with Barbie.
You also have
the three
you
of
also
them could just really go and go for
she could just
days.
talk to Barb and Star all day long.
she Trish at Christmas, please.
Forget it.
I'm gonna quote that all the time. And I'm just gonna be like, Trish at Christmas, forget it. No, you also have the woman, the friend, who they run into after they go to the place and they like have lunch, and she's just like, they were just watching us the entire time, drinking champagne. I might as well have had, we might as well have been fucking on the table. Like that's what they're just looking at us like.
Mm-hmm. There's the guy who has the one scene who's the flat they're staying at, who like strikes a really weird balance between being judgmental and like patting the guy on the back, but also being
bro,
like it's a sinister, uncomfortable encounter. Like it's really good.
It's such a weird scene because it's at first it's just like, yeah, bro, yeah, in the sack, but also,
get out.
What are you doing to your wife?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Where the hell did that come from?
He took his key. That was so mean.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, they just, she's sprinting down the street. The whole sequence when they like spend the day together and they like go to the bridge and then they come back and there's the flat scene, like that whole part is just like a lot. I mean, it's the majority of the movie. That's the other thing. This movie very brisk, moves quickly.
It's less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, like it moves. Fucking moves.
Encounter, as they say.
Yeah. But it also, I mean, like I mentioned, it was a 30-minute play, so they added 30 minutes to it, or I added 60 minutes to it.
Right. But it's just, it's heat the whole time, man. Like the whole 87 minutes. It's just great. There's not a single part of it that I would say like, you could lose that,
Any last thoughts on Brief Encounter? I'll say real quickly, go fucking watch this movie, and it's on HBO Max. Like it's widely available. So if
and Criterion Channel, if you're not
in Criterion Channel, it's on Criterion Channel. But if you're like a normie, which is fine, it's on HBO Max. So when you're done, now there's no reference to it in Space Jam 2, unfortunately. But when you're done with that, you can go watch Brief Encounter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, in these Young Critics Watch Old Movies series, we do make an effort to kind of go through the canon of like quote unquote great movies and sort of assess them for ourselves. Like how essential do these movies feel to us? And I think a lot of the time my experience is like, I'm glad I watched that. It didn't move me deeply. Right. But this is one of those that really does like stand up to its reputation as like one of the great romances. And I would say it is like an absolute must watch, not just so that you can do your homework and have seen the canon, but so that you can have like a great experience with a movie because it's just so good.
I loved it. I thought it was so touching, so beautiful. I really loved it.
It's an amazing movie.
Like,
it's just amazing.
We're at a loss for words, guys. That's 3 for
It's
3.
incredible. I love this movie so much. I'm crying.
Andrew cried at the end of it.
Oh, I cried at the beginning too. I'm like on the edge of tears for most of this movie.
That's the last thing I'll say is the whole device of like you watch the last scene at the beginning. It's very effective. It's pretty effective at that. You're just like, oh, and then like the fact that you watch the whole thing go through and then you got to watch the scene again. Like that second time watching it the entire time, you're just like,
It hurts. It hurts, but it's great.
It hurts, but it's great. Brief Encounter. Check it out.
Right.
All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Also, like we have on the bottom of this freaking video, we got patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you to our patrons Cam, Chad Newsom, Christina Daughtry, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Titus Arthur, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we will be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1949's Jour de Fête. We're going to be returning to Tati Land, which is exciting.
It's been several years since we've been in Tati Land. But we
And this
love
is a
Tati here at Cinematary.
Yeah, we're pro Tati. This is a good one because it's a little, it's very Tati, but it's the very first of Tati. So it'll be a good kind of wading pool. Of,
Another brisk one, 80 minutes.
Yeah, and it's just him being silly on a bike. It's just 80 minutes of that dude being silly on a bike. It's great. All right, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right, bye, YouTube people.